Rayman is a pretty lucky guy. He never has a stiff neck, he doesn't have to buy pants, and although throwing is his livelihood, he'll never ever need Tommy John surgery. The guy has it made. And not only that, but how many of us get to recycle stuff we did 11 years ago, submit it to our bosses, and call it something new? Rayman can, and the Limbless Wonder can because he mixes it with apathy and makes his game taste old. It's Rayman 2, the great escape. Hey, it's the all-new, never-before-seen Rayman 3D. This game is fresh, and it has to be because it has a new name. Of course, that's not entirely true. A new title does not a new game make, and this is anything but a new game. Rayman 3D is actually a port of the 1999 game Rayman 2. And although that game was a true classic for its time, it's lost its magic on the 3DS. Let that be a lesson, kids. If you don't try, you're left with a crappy port. There are a few distinctions we need to make right away. Specifically, what makes Nintendo's upcoming Ocarina of Time port any different from this? Why is there such a double standard? Well, here's the thing. There's reworking a classic with better textures, higher polygon counts, and new visual effects, let alone adding new content. And then there's carelessly re-releasing a classic. Can you guess which route Ubisoft took? Here's a hint. This game is lazy as Rayman 3D may be a remake of one of the greatest platformers of the early 3D era, but releasing that game now, virtually unaltered from its original form, only highlights how far the 3D platformer has come, and I mean that in a bad way. Ubisoft didn't even bother to address the flaws that are inherent with any platformer from that era, a bad camera most noticeably. Now, controlling a camera in 3D space is an issue that platformers still struggle with today, but to ignore the considerable advances they've made in that area and simply leave the clunky original camera untouched, that's a microcosm of what went into Rayman 3D, which is seemingly the same stuff that comprises the character's limbs. Nothing. And unfortunately, that thread runs throughout Rayman 3D. The bottom screen isn't even used, the cutscenes use clunky cut-and-paste transitions, and the graphics have been virtually untouched, underscoring their 2 generations old look with either pride or indifference. I'm not sure which would be worse. Well, the one thing working in Rayman 3D's favor is, although it's a lazy port, it's still a lazy port of a great game. And if you've never played the original Rayman 2, you might get a kick out of Rayman 3D. This game really epitomizes the good things about those early 3D platformers, glazing them over with a slick style that has the same kind of surrealistic, dreamlike appearance as a game like Epic Mickey, for example. The placement of a limbless hero into this bizarre aesthetic just works, and the gameplay, though certainly dated to the immediate post-Super Mario 64 era, is still very solid and enjoyable. There's a reason you can get away with porting Rayman 2. The game is awesome, and for those experiencing it for the first time, Rayman 3D might be worth a look. That is, if you can't find a copy of the original. Listen, porting a decade-old classic only works when updates are made. Whether it's sharper graphics, gameplay refinements, or some new content, you have to bring something new to the table, no matter how great the game once was. And I'm not saying Rayman 2 is a bad game, but Rayman 3D is.